next 20 minutes or so, you are going to be in the kitchen of Greta Uhl in her home on West Hallam, and the year is 1980. So after you have a chance to visit a little bit with Gretel, there will be a question and answer period where you get to ask the character herself, Greta, questions, keeping in mind that it is still 1980. And then after that, you can ask the actress, Nina, questions about the character. And I believe I may hear Gretel approaching.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so very much. So, I have just put a little bit of strudel into the oven. Are you hungry?
Yes.
Good, good, good. Well, we sit, and while we wait, I will share with you a little bit. I brought out one of my old photo albums because I am refreshing myself for an interview that I have later, so I will share with you just a little bit about my life. You see, I am often asked to do interviews now. Very shocking for me, but still very, very exciting. Now, I start at the beginning. I was born on November 3rd, 1923 in Bad Tölz, which is in Germany, the bottom of Bavaria. Garmisch-Partenkirchen is where we live. Now, Garmisch-Partenkirchen is divided by a river, and we lived on the more well-to-do side, the Partenkirchen side. You see, my sister Dolly and I, we grew up with maids and with nannies, and my mother, she always likes to dress my sister and I alike, which we disliked very much. Oh my. And my mother's name is Marguerite. My name actually is Margaret Hartl. That was my maiden name. So my nickname, Gretel, became quite a tongue twister, Gretel Hartl. But my father, Anton, he was actually one of the first founders of the ski school in our area. And I received my first pair of skis when on my 6th birthday. And I skied often with my father. My mother, however, she did not ski. She did not approve of the ski racing either. She and my father ran a restaurant, Cafe Hartl, which was based at the bottom of what became the ski jump for the Olympics in 1939. It was very convenient because, you see, the people, they used to file into the restaurant. It would fill up very much, and then they would file out the backside. And the police, they would have to help us to keep the crowds. It was so very busy. And my mother, very good businesswoman, she rented out. It was a Bavarian-style building with a porch up on the 2nd floor and a beautiful yard outside. So she rented the yard to people, and to movie stars and celebrities, the porch that was upstairs. My mother was very, very smart. You know, she was, oh, she's beautiful. She was always, to her, money was the most important thing, you see. Now, in Germany at that time, it was very common to see signs inside of restaurants that said no Jews. However, at Cafe Hartl, it was known that there would be no hassle. That was until 1939, when the Nazis actually confiscated our restaurant. My father, he was sent away, and my mother, she had to carry everything over and take care of the business by herself. It was very, very hard for her to do everything, and she had a bit of a nervous breakdown, you would call. And she never went back to the restaurant business. Now, the Nazis were afraid that of sabotage and armed resistance from us. And they made everyone turn in their skis. But you see, we all had more than one pair of skis. So we gave them our worst, and we hid our best. Very smart. Now, the regime, they neglected us for many times, and there were winters where we ate only bread and potatoes. It was difficult. And that is why now, when you come to my house, we always have good food here for everyone to eat. Plenty of food. And in fact, in my house, out in the patio here, we do not have this backside here heated. So it is cool, so I can keep my baked goods outside. Do you know, my family does not eat my goods. They do not like all the baked goods, but I always have something out there for when my friends come to visit. And anyone is welcome here at my table. Back to the war. In 1943, I was drafted by the Nazis to work. I did the payroll, so I worked at the train station. And where we were located, it was very safe from all of the bombing and devastation because of the mountains on either side. It was too hard for a plane to come in, so we were safe. One day, however, I decided to go home for lunch. I never went home for lunch. One day, I go home for lunch, and while I was home, an American plane who had to clear the mountain had to drop a bomb. And when he dropped his bomb, it went on the train station. Everything gone. There was only one cleaning lady who was killed that day. But gratefully, I was not there. I did lose several friends during the war. I lost someone that I loved very much. It's very hard to lose someone that you love. Following the war, the American Recreation Center set themselves up to give soldiers something in Europe for some rest and for some relaxation, and that included skiing lessons, yes? So, Seb, my husband, was actually a ski instructor there at the American Recreation Center, and it still exists today, under the name of the Armed Forces Recreation Center in Europe. I was racing at the time, and as a member of the German national ski team, I would have participated, in the Olympics in 1948, but Germany was not invited. I had not been allowed ski racer training because of my mother's dislike for the skiing. So because she forbid it so much, it became absolutely irresistible to me. I loved speed. My first race, I actually sneaked out of my bedroom. I dropped my skis down, I jumped out after them, and off I went. And racing for me, it was actually an accident, you see. In 1939, I had been at the race, I was up at the top, and someone did not show up. So they said, here, you take this number, you put it on, you go down the hill. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know how to turn. So I just went straight down. I won the race. And I started racing against Austria mainly because we didn't have much choice during the war. Now I met Seb, actually, at a ski instructor's party. It was Erich Windlisch, who was then the master of skiing in Germany, of Nordic master. And it was my very first ski instructor's party. And I met Seb there, and I must say, we liked each other. But it took me a full year of courting before I decided that he was the man I was going to marry. You see, I was already engaged to a man that my parents liked very much. He lived in Freiburg, he was an architect, and that was, I think, where some of the trouble began between my parents and Seb. Because when I chose him to become married to, my parents were very disappointed. As for some of the other people in my town, they sent me letters. I actually have here some of the, they were of course anonymous letters sent to me saying, oh, we're so disappointed in you, and so on and so on. I couldn't understand it, but anyway, we were married. We were married in 1948. And Renata, my daughter, was born in 1950. She was born in our house. I was at the hospital, but I couldn't bear to be in the room with 4 other ladies who were all in labor. So I just put on my dress and I go and I take the bus back home. I called the midwife on my way, and then I had Renata back at my house. Now, my parents disliking Seb the way they did made for our life very difficult when we were married. But luckily, we were very good friends with Willy Scheffler, who lived, he left in 1949, and Tony Vernley, who was the best man at our wedding, and he came to Aspen in 1951. I have a beautiful picture from our wedding, beautiful, stunning. So, that year, 1951, was when Dick Durrance, who Seb had met during school back in Garmisch, came to and showed movies from the FIS races held here in Aspen in 1950. And we thought, oh, what a beautiful town and beautiful mountains to ski. And that was when we began to think about coming to America. So we went back and forth with the American Council in Munich, and Willy sponsored us and arranged for transport to the United States. Now, my parents were supposed to supply us the money, but at the very last minute, they did not. So it was actually the man who ran the ski school in Germany who helped to pay for us to come. And we traveled on the Mediterranean from France over to New York City and then on to Colorado by train. And when we arrived in Glenwood Springs, it was Tony Vernley who came down, he picked us up and he brought us into Aspen, and everyone that we met was so welcoming and friendly. I loved Aspen from the very first time that we arrived. This was in 1953. Now, we rented a little brick house, it was on Main Street, from Judge Shaw and his beautiful wife, Dorothy. It was $75 a month. So Seth did a little bit of work on the house in lieu of payment for the rent. And he worked as a ski instructor. And our neighbors were Kurt and Lottie Bresnitz and, on one side. And then there was Freddie Fisher on the other side. So everyone was though very, very helpful. From lending us things before our stuff came to America, and showing us how to do things here. I went into the grocery store and they did not carry good sausage. They had nothing for me to cook with. It was difficult. It was unbelievable, but it was home for us. My English initially was very spotty. I could recite, early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy and wealthy and wise, which doesn't help very much. And there weren't many jobs for a woman with a baby. So I took a job cleaning rooms and changing beds at the Hillside Lodge. I was paid 78 cents an hour. Oh, I have no idea how I did it. I cleaned 42 beds every day, going up and down the stairs with a Renata on one hip and a vacuum cleaner on the other. Oh my goodness. Then Tony was born in 1954, my son. I used to walk up and down the different streets here in the beautiful West End until I saw this house that had beautiful sunshine all the time. And I said, that is the house that I want. Now we had saved $2,000 by this point. And so we went to Walter Pepke, who owned the house, and we said to Walter, we want to buy the house, but we don't have the rest of the money. So he said, if you will borrow from Mr. Durox, you know Albert, who owned a lot of land up on the Red Mountain, and would borrow money, you borrow half from him, and then I will give you the other half. So I ran right over to the Hotel Jerome, and I spoke to Albert, and we got the money. And Mr. Pepke came through on his agreement, and we bought this house. And I have called this home since then. It is not beautiful, yes? Yeah. Sepp has done all of the beautiful work on these cupboards here in the kitchen. All of this is his handiwork. He is very, very, very handy. And eventually, when Tony grew up, we decided to bring in the house next door. And we had to dig out the land to put the house. It came in on the train. And when it came, it was Neil Beck who was helping us by digging out next door. But I would look out my window and I'd see over there he was not doing anything. And I would go outside and I'm saying, Neil, what are you doing? And he said, he kept finding beautiful milk bottles. Because you see, this was where the Aspen dairy was. So, that's an interesting piece about the house next door. In 1955, I was hired as a ski instructor. I was not the first female ski instructor, but I was among the first. There was Thelma Sabatini, of course, and I taught lessons first. And then, I don't remember, I think the year was, it looks like this says 56 or 57, I'm not sure, that I began to teach expert classes for people. Then I began to teach the instructors, you see, and during the clinics in the early part of the season. And in my 11 years of teaching skiing, I taught many of those who are still teaching today on our mountains. You see, it was in, let's see, what year was it? When Fred asked me to move over to Buttermilk, it was late in the 1950s. And he said to me, if I would come to work at the Buttermilk, he would still allow me to have a few lessons over on Aspen Mountain where I could go fast, which is what I like. Oh my. So, I love to work for Fred Iselin. You have met him, yes? He is a fabulous man. Very, well, he inspired people. That's what he did. He was a fun guy, special personality. Maybe someday you will get to meet him. When I think that he always looked over to Aspen Mountain and or Aspen Highlands, and he used to say, "Oh, look at this Mickey Mouse Mountain," he used to call it. And then 2 years later, he became the director of ski school over there. That is funny. Now, 1 year, as the Southern Rocky Mountain Ski Instructors Association was voting for a new director, I got up and I said, I think it is high time that they hire a woman to take this role. So of course, immediately said, very good, why don't you do it, they said. So I became the first ladies director of the Southern Rocky Mountain Ski Instructors, and I changed some of the laws. The purpose of this organization, you see, was for setting up minimum standards of qualified ski instruction, approving and certifying the qualifications of ski instructors. It was more difficult for a woman, and I changed that, thank you very much. In 1966, they changed the name to the Rocky Mountain Ski Instructors Association. It has always made me mad that if I were a man, they would pay me more. So, I always carry, excuse me, this clipping with me, which says, whatever women do, they must do twice as good as men to be thought half as good. You know? I like that. I carry it with me everywhere. Now, I am what you would call impulsive. I make a decision, I go, I want to do it right then. So in February of 1966, the 23rd to be exact, I was in line at the ski instructors meeting, and I thought, I must go right now to speak to Darcy Brown. You see, I had heard that they were going to open a new mountain restaurant, and I wanted to run it. So I ran out of the meeting. I went over to his office up on the second floor above where McDonald's is today. And I brushed past Peggy O'Negan. He was on the phone, and the minute that he's hang up, I tell him that I want to run the next On the Mountain restaurant. Well, he looks at me and he asks me what kind of experience do I have in running a restaurant. And I told him all about growing up with my parents running Cafe Hartle. I didn't tell him that my mother would shush us out and we were not allowed in the kitchen. But that summer, Mr. Pratt brought me up onto the mountain, and he and Darcy showed me where they wanted to put the little warming hut. That first lease was not good for me. So we negotiated, and eventually we signed a deal on October 6th in 1966, and the press release was issued. I have it here. Greta Uhl, for 11 years with her husband Sepp, mainstays of the Aspen Ski School staff, will open a new restaurant on Aspen Mountain. This cozy alpine hut is directly over old mines in Turtleot Park and will be entirely manned by housewives of Aspen. And Gretel's Turtleot Park opened in December of that year, 1966. Now, I wanted to change on mountain dining from the hamburgers and the hot dogs that you were all used to. I wanted to have fresh daily desserts, things from my homeland, that I would cook fresh soups and lovely home recipes, things like liver dumpling soup. It was a big hit. And I also thought it was silly for you to get all of your hot food and then wait in the long line to get to the end to get your cold food before you buy your food at the register. So I moved the cold food up to the front, and I put the hot food down at the back of the line, and I changed it all around. And that was revolutionary, you see. I did hire a lot of my friends, a lot of whom were housewives. And on the very first day, one of our first guests walks inside, looks around, and says, "Is this a restaurant or a meeting of the PTA?" Now, eventually, I began to hire more ski bumps to come and work for me. But I knew that it had to be special, and I knew that they wanted to ski, so I started with the 2 days on and 2 days off schedule for them, to keep them happy. And that schedule is what most of the restaurants still use today. And my staff, you know, if anyone ever came in hungover, I would make them a special drink. It was a little warm water and some apple cider vinegar. And I would bring it to them, and I would tell them they had to drink their cup. And they would drink it down, and by 11 a.m., they were feeling very, very good. I also used to make everyone every few days ate a few tablespoons of raw sauerkraut. I had a very, very healthy staff. Now, I also believe the workplace should be happy. So you had to leave your garbage at the door. I am here 7 days a week. I am the first one up and the last one to go down in the afternoon. I believe that if the owner does not work, does not shy away, then no one else will. Now we bring up all the food on the lift and then we snowcat down to the restaurant. Now, this has been a problem a few times as the snowcats tumble or something falls off. It will tumble all the way down to the bottom of the mountain. One day, Sep was down at the bottom of the mountain and down comes a man skiing with a big sausage on his shoulder. Sep goes over to the man and he says, I believe that belongs to my wife. Oh my, we got a big laugh out of that. Now, I added on the room on the side of the restaurant so that I could have the aroma of the food wafting out to the number 2 chair and so that I could keep my eye on Sep as he was in his ski school. One day, during a very, very bad snowstorm, the lifts stopped running, and while the staff was stranded at the restaurant, I made them a little treat. My family's very homemade special apple strudel. Oh, they begged me to put it on the menu. Eventually, we had to improvise a pizza machine to make the dough, and we got a mechanical apple peeler, and we go through almost 200 pounds of apples a day. We make 28 pans. That's 56 strudels every day, and we still run out. When people come in too late, and they say, where's the strudel? I say, I'm sorry, you must get here early. It has to be fresh. I cook all sorts of different specialties here. The different weather, I cook different foods. For example, if it is snowing outside, well, then I make red jello. But if it is sunny, I make green because it sells better, believe it or not. And with the barometric pressure, some of the things that I bake, for example, cream puffs, they are huge if it is rising, but other days not so good. I've met so many interesting people. My book is just full of pictures and glorious things. Some of these people have become lifelong friends of mine. Famous people like the Kennedys and Jack Nicholson. My friend Johnny and I, we love to travel. We used to go on road trips during the off seasons. We do not plan where we are going. We just see if a road looks good and that's where we go. We've driven all over the southwest corners. Boy, oh boy, for fun one year, this is good. On April 1st, the Fool's Day, Barbara Guy and I dress up in McDonald's uniforms, and we decided to change the sign outside to say McGretel's restaurant. And the staff, they cut all of the strudel into perfectly tendered pieces, everything the same, and it was very fun. We served McGretel's strudel all day long. I do like to have a big party at the end of the season. Of course, most of you have all been there to my party, where we eat all the food and we sing and we dance. It is one of my favorite times. It's just crazy, isn't it? Now, after 14 years of running the restaurant, the new owners of the now skiing corporation want to standardize beyond mountain restaurants. And they want me to pay for all of the maintenance on the building, even though I do not own it. I have to pay the lease and take care of the building. And I find these terms unacceptable. So this new lease would ruin me financially, and I just cannot continue. So I have decided it is time for me to spend time with my family and on my health. Perhaps I would write a cookbook. I have always wanted to do that. I'm going to take a winter and just ski, and then maybe a year before I think about opening another restaurant. This name Gretel's will come with me. The new restaurant here will become Turtelot Restaurant. This decision has been very, very difficult for me, and I am not a quitter. But this is from my letter of resignation I read to you. After a thorough and careful study of the new contract, I came to the conclusion that it is not worthwhile anymore to continue to manage and run Gretel's restaurant. I also owe it to my family and to my health to slow down in the coming year. I think the time is ripe for a change in my life. I loved my work all these years, and I know what I accomplished, what I set out to do, I have done. So thank you. Oh, I believe that I smell the strudel should be ready soon. Did you have any questions before I go to take it out of the oven? Yes?
Where was your house?
We're sitting right here on Hallam Street.
Well, where was the house?
We're on Hallam Street. The exact address,
Okay.
I cannot
not
ever
very
remember numbers, but we are between 3rd and 2nd. Any other questions? Hi.
Gretel, did you know Ellie Iselin very well?
Of course I knew Ellie Iselin very well.
Because she was also she was an instructor.
Absolutely. And she opened her beautiful shop downtown. Ellie and I get along very well. I know some people in town have trouble with Ellie, and sometimes she's a little strong, but I am okay with strong women. We are very good friends. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is there any connection with your restaurant and one is Bonnie's restaurant now?
Well, you know, at this point in 1980, I have no idea what you're talking about, crazy man, but... If I may now say hi. I'm Nina. Most of you know me. So yes, actually, she handed it down, not handed it down. The Aspen Skiing Corporation ran it for a few years. And then Bonnie, what was her last name? Brucker, thank you, took it over. And now Bridget runs it. So it is handed down. The strudel they serve is strudel. It's not necessarily Gretel's recipe. From what I've been told, in Bavaria, you could go from house to house and each person's recipe would be just ever so very different or slightly variation, but you would be able to tell the different recipes from home to home. And Gretel's, I'm afraid, is deep within inside Anton's head. And Tony actually, as recently as a few years ago when he was working at Allegria would make it, but he's moved to Boston. So I don't know if we'll ever get Gretel's strudel back anymore.
Could you answer Macy's question now that you're, about where the house was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Hallam between 2nd and 3rd. I don't know the exact
I just
address.
was worried she was confused because she kept saying right here.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Because we were in the house.
I get it.
So it's the little yellow one where Charlie Sheen was arrested on Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So it's actually, you know what, I think it's between,
Yeah,
2nd and 3rd. It's on that side.
Yeah.
It's north side of the street.
How did you get along with Darcy Brown?
Well, initially, of course, I had him wrapped around my little finger. No, very well. What I promised I came through with, right?
Was he the president of the Aspen Skiing Company?
He was right on up until 1980, so when he left, she left. Basically, the terms of the lease and the conditions of how the on-mountain restaurant was going to be operated changed with the new ownership. And so that was why she chose to move on. And a few years later, she went on to help open the merry-go-round or work on the merry-go-round restaurant and changing that up and adding the daily kind of foods and things and more fresh ingredients and interesting recipes and such to, she really did change the face of on-mountain dining.
2 days on, 2 days out, good idea.
Isn't it just? Like it.
Is
Yes.
she still living? And
No,
where?
Gretel died in 2002 from cancer. She died living in that house. Actually, the house was sold shortly thereafter, renovated a bit. There's been a new addition added onto her home. It's that really contemporary looking addition. And there is a family that gratefully does live here a lot of the year in that house, so it's well loved and taken care of and raising a new family, which I like a lot. Makes me happy.
I don't know the year that it happened, but Seth had a very bad accident on Aspen Mountain. I don't know if that's in your...
I'm not familiar. Seth preceded her in death by about almost 8 years, I think. I'm not sure about the accident, to be honest.
I don't know.
Yeah, he continued, he was in
Teaching?
the cast, and he insisted that he had to keep on working. Yes.
You know, those Germans.
What about her children?
So
Where are they?
Renata lives in Grand Junction, and Anton and his wife and kids now live in Boston. Anton, Tony. You mean to Anton. Right, sorry, Tony is Anton. He made a name change.
So no more Aspen ties for the kids.
Not right now. That's not to say it won't ever happen, but not right now. So I want to thank you all very much. Fred's a little taller than I am, so help him out here. I have to struggle with it. There we go.
Thank you, Nina. That was great.
Well, thank you.
Next up, we have Fred Iselin. He is one of our most celebrated ski instructors. And this afternoon, he has called together his fellow ski instructors for a meeting to make a major announcement. The year is 1966. So please, everybody, welcome Fred Iselin.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, is that me?
Yep.
Hi. Well, water. Never touch the stuff. Oh, hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Mr. Ski. The guys at the post office, so they call me Fred Iselin. So you heard of Fred Iselin? Have you heard of Fred Iselin? Which Fred Iselin do you know? Have you heard of a lot of them? There are a lot of Fred Iselins, you know. Yeah, there's Fearless Fred. And there's Mysterious Fred. And then there's the Clown Fred. And of course, the Bon Vivant Fred that you recognize. Well, remarkably, all the Fred Iselins in the world, they're all me. They're all here tonight, standing right in front of you. You're very lucky. Well, anyway, I've called you together. I made a very important decision about my life, and I wanted to share it with you. But before I tell you my decision, I need to tell you a little bit about myself and how I come to make this choice in my life. And we have to go all the way back to when I first started skiing. I was only 4 years old. Only 4 years old, my father first put me on skis. My father, Christoph, was a very, very important man in the world of skiing. He was an officer in the Swiss Army. And he founded the Swiss Army Ski Corps. He was the first person to start a ski club in Switzerland. He wrote the very first book anybody ever wrote about skiing. And he worked long and hard on developing this new line of skiing equipment that came out of Arlberg, Austria. Now previously the skis, when we talk about skis, we talk about these monstrous things. They're like 10 feet long. And they had one great big pole you used to kind of steer, I gotta say kinda. So when they developed the Arlberg technique in Austria, the skis, they're much shorter. And instead of one big long pole, you have 2 poles you can use. It's more dynamic, you can move, you can flow, you can fly down the slope, you can do all kinds of wonderful things. And my father was on the front line developing this new form of skiing, the skiing we all know today. And in fact, there's a museum, a skiing museum in Bern. If you go to this museum, you will see piece after piece after piece after piece of skiing equipment that my father made. He was a very big deal. My father, he was a military man. So after I graduated from college, he tells me, you should go into the military. So I give it a try. They make me lieutenant. I have the college and my father to help me. But I don't like it. I don't like it. The military is just stupid. It's just really stupid. And it's no fun at all. And it's very bad for your health. Has anyone here ever lived in the Army? No one? You have? You don't look so good. You see this guy over here, you all look at him? Yeah. That's what the Army does to you. Isn't that terrible? It's my mother. I have a relationship with my mother too. She tells me, all of us, always, to eat the right foods, to get to a good workout, to go to bed early and get up early. And she tells me to take care of myself and be very careful not to take chances. So I'm very, very thankful to my mother. She made me the reckless fool I am today. So anyway, since I don't go in the army, instead I go to Chamonix in Switzerland. This is in the 1930s. In the Chamonix, it was like the center of skiing in Europe at the time. And so I competed in the races there, and I taught. I was an excellent teacher, believe me. And I also started my very first movie. I did. It was called The Grand Iselin. And I was the well, you call them the stuntman, or stunt double, something like that. So the actor, who is almost as good looking as I, he didn't know how to ski. So when they need the skiing to be done, they put me in this clothes and I do the skiing. So I was doing these crazy, insane shusses down the glaciers. But on the camera, you can't tell it's me, because back then my face was very smooth, just like the actors, and my pants were baggy. Now today, I'm afraid it's the other way around. But I love being in movies. My friend Friedel Pfeiffer, he once said, Fred would ski into a pile of rocks at 60 miles an hour if you put a camera on him. It's not entirely true. The fact is, you would have to pay me to do that, but I would do it. I was very successful competing too, of course, like I mentioned. There was this one competition in Chamonix, the Grand Prix d'Aiguille du Midi downhill. I was the biggest winner of that race. Nobody won that race more than I do. But you have to understand about downhill races then. It was a killer-diller thing, very different. Today, we got the skier, and he starts at the top of the downhill course, and it's all laid out, and there are fans all there, and then he goes to the bottom, and that's it. But back when we start skiing, the downhill was not like that at all. The downhill was simply from the top of the mountain to the bottom. You have the judges at the top, you have judges down in the village, in the bottom of the hill, and they got stopwatches, and that's it. You go down as fast as you can. That was all there was to it. It was the test of your skill, your mountaineering ability, and of course your skiing. But in conditions like that, if the weather was very bad, for example, if there was a lot of snow around, you couldn't see where you're going, competitors might actually end up in the next village over. They might actually get lost. But not me. But that race, the Aiguille du Midi, was considered by many to be a very, very, very dangerous race. So dangerous, in fact, that they ended it in 1939. But not for me. I was the last person to win that race, and I won it more times than anyone else. Oh, I also met Friedel for the first time when I was in Chamonix. He noticed what a wonderful instructor I was, and then of course he went on to Sun Valley some years later. And then he asked me to come out and help him out teaching these Americans how to ski at Sun Valley. So I go over, I get with my friend Willie Meyer, well actually with his wallet, and he and I managed to come over to the United States. And we go to Radio City Music Hall to see the Rockettes, and then we take a train to Detroit to buy a car, because Detroit's where they make cars, you know, so that's where you go to buy a car, right? So as we head driving west, Willie and I came up with a really wonderful game. It's called the Blindfold the Driver game. It's very simple. It's very simple. Very few rules. The driver is wearing a blindfold, and the other guy in the front seat, he's telling the driver what to do. And that's all there is to it. It's very simple. And the object of the game is to not to die. It's wonderful. So I'll tell you, one time, Friedel, years later, Friedel and I, we're playing the Blindfold the Driver game. We're going over Donner Pass. We're not hungry, so we don't eat each other. But we go over the pass. And I got the blindfold on, and Friedel, he's telling me to go left, you go to right, and go right, and go slow down, turn a little more, put the brakes on, and all of a sudden, there's this horrible noise, and we're gonna crash. And I take off the blindfold, and there's the snowplow in the front seat of the car. We hit the snowplow, tore right through the car, right into the front seat of the car. So, Friedel and I, we go to the hospital, and when I get a chance, I point out to Friedel that he cheated. But anyway, so we go to Sun Valley, and Friedel has this wonderful school set up there. Sun Valley is a wonderful, beautiful place. Have you been there? No, you haven't. Have you been there? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You should go. But go to Aspen first. It's better. But in Sun Valley, I also meet lots of celebrities. Now, I know some of you guys out there, you're thinking, Fred Iselin, he's like a social climber. He likes to hang out with these celebrities, like, you know, But it's not like that. I just like these people. They're fun and they like me. I like to entertain them. I make them laugh. Gary Cooper, good buddy of mine, Lana Turner. And so, let me turn my page here. But these movie stars and all these celebrities, it's kind of fun. I like to make fun of them, right to their face. It's better that way. But you have to be careful. You have to do it in a way such that it makes them laugh. If you can make them laugh and you insult them, everything's fine. With this technique, it works well with ski instructors too, by the way. Now Friedel, he runs a ski school. He can be kind of tough. He's not what you call today people person. He can be kind of cold. So when the instructors need some help, I'm the guy to give it to them. What I usually do is I make fun of them, I mimic them, their technique, and once I get them laughing, then their feelings aren't hurt, nobody's put down, and they feel like they belong. And so I make my point, they learn a little bit better how to be a ski instructor, and everybody's happy. Teaching skiing or anything is always easier with laughter. Life, like skiing, life should be free and easy. But anyway, free and easy didn't last very long there at Sun Valley. World War II comes around. And Sun Valley, it's closed down and becomes a rehabilitation camp for the Army. So I have time on my hands. I'm able to help out. I want to do my bit. Obviously, I'm not going to be anything in the military. So instead, what I do, since I'm Swiss, I'm neutral. I can go back and forth between the United States, Germany, as much as I want. And so I take, we call care packages, food and letters and sweaters and knit socks for all the POW Americans in the camps in Germany. And then on the return trip, I take the same things from the German families, I bring them to the German POWs in the United States. And that's how I spent the war. But going back and forth, of course, I go on the steamship. I usually go on the same boat. It was captained by a fellow who's he was a lot of captain, I gotta tell you. He's a really big captain. And he sees me, he says, "Fred, you're so fit and slender and wonderful looking. How could I possibly look as good as you?" So I help him out. I have nothing else to do. We're on the boat. So I tell him, I give him a diet, and I also tell him that if he sits in the smokestack on the boat, it's like a sauna, and the pounds will just melt away. That's what I tell him. So the captain, he sits in the smokestack in the sauna for the whole trip, and he gets his meals in there. They have to come in there when he gives orders and everything. He even sleeps in there. My gosh, spends his whole time sleeping in the sauna. You know, I don't actually know if he lost weight. I never saw him after that trip. Well, anyway, after the war, this Aspen place opened up here for the first time. And Friedel, they hired on to operate the ski school. And of course, he took me along with him. There wasn't much here at the time. There were only 2 lifts. We only had 7 instructors. But it was a start. It was something we could build on, something to look forward to in the future. So we worked hard, we played hard, and we kept track of every student, paid very close attention, and we were very, very successful when we opened our ski school here. But I also decided to bring the movie stars here to Aspen too. So all those buddies I make in Sun Valley, I told them to come to Aspen and have fun. Gary Cooper, he's a good buddy of mine. So he comes to Aspen. He is actually at the opening ceremonies when they open up the chairlifts in 1947. He's actually there. But anyway, I get back into the movies. In the 1950s, I directed and wrote and shot and starred in a wonderful movie I made for Walt Disney. It's called Little Skier's Big Day. It's about a little girl. She lives on Aspen Mountain. Skis down every day. She's trying to get to school, but she doesn't really quite get to school because she's having too much fun. The way you saw it, right? Yeah. At any rate, there was another actor in that movie named, we called him Bingo. He was a very professional actor. He was an excellent actor. He took direction extremely well. But you know, like a lot of out-of-work actors, he spent his time, when he wasn't acting, he spent it on the floor of the bar at the Hotel Drome. Like a lot of actors. John Wayne, we did that. Anyway, Bingo, he's staying with my wife and I, Ellie. And Whenever it's time to have Bingo come home for dinner, it's very simple. We call the bartender and I say, could you put Bingo on the phone, please? And the bartender puts the phone up to Bingo's ear and I say, Bingo, time to come home. And Bingo, since he takes direction very well, he gets up and he goes home. That's in time for dinner. We live just a couple blocks from the Trome. He's an excellent actor. I was very pleased to work with him. Oh, he was the Saint Bernard. Did I mention that? No, I think I forgot to mention my wife, Ellie, when I first met her. It was actually at Sun Valley. I met her at Sun Valley back when she was still Ellie Stiller. She was another instructor there. And one day we were skiing on Darla Mountain. We were making big, wide, swooping, graceful turns like this. We're crossing, and we're crossing, and we're crossing, and bam! I ran into her. And I broke a rib, and I figured, well, I got to have a nurse. Now that I can't work, I have to have a nurse take care of me. And Ellie was the only girl I know, so I married her. Pretty simple. At any rate, we have to get back to the ski schools, because that's really why what I'm here to talk to you about. The Aspen Skiing Corporation took over the ski school from Friedel late in the 1950s. And Friedel, he instead goes to open up Buttermilk. And naturally, when he goes to open up, he takes his best instructors with him. I should mention, they just opened Aspen Highlands, same time. And Mr. Jones, he brings in this guy named Stein Eriksson, Olympic skier. Really, really good-looking guy, I think. Not as good-looking as me, but pretty close, gotta tell you. And he comes, he opens the ski school at Aspen Highlands, and he teaches what they call the American technique. Now I was taught what I would call the international technique in my books. This is what my father taught me. It's the original Allroad method. And you have a whole variety of different types of turns and moves that you use. So you suit the turn for the particular conditions you're encountering at any moment. The main technique when you're turning with the international technique is when you want to go left, you throw your right shoulder around, and that brings the rest of your body around like this. So when you're linking your turns, it's like this, and like this. It's a very graceful, flowing motion. It's like playing tennis, like this. This is the same type of motion. Or when you're driving a car, same type of motion, that same flow, that same feeling you have, that same grace. But Stein, he's pushing this American technique thing, which relies really heavy on the Wedelin turn. You know the Wedelin? Do you Wedelin? Do you Wedelin, ma'am?
Yeah.
You do Wedelin. Good, good. You must come up and give me your phone number later. We'll Wedelin together. But the Wedelin is a turn, instead of your body following your natural motion, you're actually turning the top and your bottom of your body in different directions like this. It's very awkward. It's very fast, but it's good for really quick little turns. But for long, graceful turns, you want to do this more flowing technique. But Stein and his American technique, they promote using these kind of turns for these itchy little turns for all the time. And the Wedelin is a good turn, but you got to have a variety of techniques you have to be able to use. So anyway, then the Aspen Skiing Corps, then they buy Buttermilk. And voila, I'm out of a job again. So I take on a role in another movie, John Jay, the movie Persian Powder. Maybe you see me on the camel with the skis. You see that? No? You should go see it. Well, anyway, Stein, then he goes to Utah, start the ski school in Alta. And so I take over the ski school at Aspen Highlands, 1965. And I start teaching them the international technique with these graceful flowing turns. Now, the Professional Ski Instructors of America, PSIA, they are backing this American technique with these itchy, twitchy little turns. Very awkward. But then, a fellow named Kruckenhauser, an Austrian ski instructor, a great note, he changes his mind. He says, okay, this Wedelin technique, it's no good. You got to go back to the international style, the more flowing style. So now my friends at the PSIA will have to switch back to my type of skiing, which we've been emphasizing for the past 10 years. Very embarrassing for them, isn't it? I'll miss it. These twitchy little twins, holding their arms like they're getting little sick turks. Yeah. Ooh, I will miss it terribly. So anyway, I write Invitation to Modern Skiing, 1965, actually the third release of my book, the third version. It's the all-time best-selling book on skiing, by the way. I want you to know that. Okay. I'm not bragging, but okay. But I think we should consider the skiing from another point of view. You know, what is the skier's aim in perfecting his or her technique? And what are your feelings while you're skiing? What are you feeling? What do you, are you feeling the aesthetic, the art of this skiing? That's what you want to do. I mean, the greatest sensation of skiing is the feeling of floating, to be light, to feel airborne, to swoop, to glide. These are the exhilarating thrills of the sport. These floating turns, effortless and light, in any type of terrain, should be the ultimate goal of any skier. The technique of today's skiers is compounded by elasticity and timing. Power comes from technique, not brute force. But I'm getting off track here. I got to tell you, I'm getting very, very, very tired of talking about techniques. And so many instructors today, especially here in Aspen, they just want to talk about this technique or that technique, and this one's good and this is bad. But all this time they spend talking and arguing, they could be spent out skiing. It makes no sense to me. So believe it or not, I'm tired of talking. Find that hard to believe, yes. But I've come to tell you, this is my announcement here. You pay attention. I've come to tell you I'm retiring from ski instruction. I know. Giving the others the knowledge they need to enjoy the sensation of flying down the mountain, it's been one of my greatest joys in life. But now that joy lies buried under endless discussion about which technique is right and which is wrong. And frankly, I just cannot find the joy in it anymore. But you don't have to worry. You won't have to live your lives without all those Fred Iselins, because I am going to devote myself to my film career. I'm going to be a movie star. So, I'll be a full-time movie star. You'll be able to see on the silver screen whenever you wish. So, thank you all for coming tonight. And remember, life should be like skiing, free and easy.
Does anybody have any questions for Fred
Oh,
here
yes.
in 1966?
I do.
Ms. Vaidlin.
So, yeah. Where did you grow up in Switzerland?
The city of Glarus.
Glarus.
Glarus. Yes.
Okay, and then in the movie that you did with the little girl, who was she? I can't remember who that little girl was. They lived up on, at the sun deck?
They lived on the sun deck.
Yeah, and the
Mom,
little
Dad?
girl was, who was she?
Susie Work.
Susie?
Thank you.
Susie Work.
I'm glad she's here.
Okay.
What else do you want to know about me? I'm an open book. You there with your hand up.
Did you purposely run into your wife when you were skiing on the mountain?
Well, I don't know. It's a question, did I run into her, did she run into me? You have to stop and think. Now, who would be the better skier?
Yeah.
I think it was sort of biblical. He gave up a rib to get a wife.
Good one, Mike.
Do you have any
Yeah,
kids, Fred?
Sorry?
Do you have any children?
No, never bothered to do that.
Oh.
I mean, never do that with my wife. I mean, no kids. No children. Yes, sir.
Did you ever have any interaction with Ralph Jackson?
I could not believe that I would not have had a lot of interaction with Ralph. He was a fun guy, loads of fun. Of course, he was working illegally, you know. He had his own little ski school. It wasn't the official ski school. So we knew about it. We knew he was there. But he was a good guy. He run the ice rink by the Drone Hotel too.
I have one more question
Yes.
about your dad. What did you say your dad did in Switzerland?
He was an officer in the Swiss Army.
Yeah.
He starts the Swiss Army Ski Corps.
Yeah.
And he develops the skiing, the art, the sport of skiing, the equipment, the techniques.
That's amazing.
Yes, he is a wonderful man. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander. Any questions for Alexander about his research or his performance?
Or anything else about Fred? Yes, sir.
Is Fred your finest character to do so far?
Fred is definitely my finest character to date. Yes,
And
I've only done the one.
What other characters have you done?
None.
You do a little Charles Armstrong.
I can't count that. He's not really a character.
But what they're saying is they want you to do more, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
want you to do more.
You know, stop it.
Yeah.
What did Fred die of?
You're on camera.
Ooh, put that there. Yes, ma'am.
What did Fred die of?
Not too long after he gave this fictitious announcements, he was back in Chamonix, and he was filming. They were shooting a movie, and he was shushing down a glacier at very, very high speed. The conditions were absolutely horrible. They had melting and freezing, so it was glare ice and wind-packed powder. He caught an edge, really nasty fall, suffered internal injuries, and actually died about 3 months after the accident. It was pretty painful for him because he was still alive, but he knew he would never ski again, so it must have been really hard on him.
And Ellie died how long afterwards?
Oh my gosh, I'm afraid I haven't done enough research on Ellie. Does anyone, can anyone help me out here?
Ellie was a strong lady.
She was a strong lady.
Because she ran the shop for years.
Oh yeah, she was nasty sometimes.
Yeah, their relationship to me is very mysterious. Actually, Fred is largely a mystery. After his deaths, one of his friends said, Fred never had a serious moment in his life, and it's true. He was always performing. He was always on. He was always in character. And it was really hard for me to find out just who in the heck this guy was. And his relationship with Ellie, I found out even less about that. I've heard a number of different stories, actually, about how he and Ellie ended up getting engaged, but they all revolved around the idea of it being a marriage of convenience. And they produced no children, of course, from the marriage. And I did find out that Fred got his warmth and affection from other sources, especially on some of these European trips.
Very definitely.
So they're a very strange match, from what I do know about them. And again, I think it was just a marriage of convenience for both of them. Yes, sir.
Every single picture you see of Fred, he's smiling and laughing and dancing and drinking. Have you ever seen a picture of him where he wasn't smiling?
No. No, I haven't. I really
He's
haven't.
having fun.
Yes.
He's having fun.
Enjoyment of life was right at the top of his list of things to do every day, I guess.